Hi, I'm Mina Malik Hussain and you're watching The Coffee Table, and today we have a very important and serious show for you today, but I trust that you will find it as urgent and interesting as I do and expect to do. Violence against women around the world is on the increase. Of course, one can argue that violence generally across the world is on the increase, unfortunately, and one very important aspect of that violence is acid attacks. Most of the victims of acid burning are women. There's a small percentage that does happen to men, but most perpetrators are men, and these are statistics that we can't ignore. But given that there is a widespread prevalence of these attacks in several countries across the world, in Iran, in the United Kingdom, and across South Asia, we thought it was relevant and pertinent to look at the reasons why these things happen, but also because, the coffee table is about positiveness and, hopefulness. We are talking about the excellent work being done by individuals in Pakistan to help victims find a better life. So I'm delighted to welcome back on the show today Dr. Afzal Bajwa, who is a plastic and cosmetic surgeon, but he is, more importantly, a burn specialist. He's an assistant professor at the Mayo Hospital here in Lahore. And joining us via, the internet is Masarrat Misbah, who, of course, is the wonderful woman behind Depilex, but most importantly, for the purposes of this show, is also the brains and heart behind Depilex's Smileagain Foundation. Hello, and welcome to the show. Masarrat, let's begin at the beginning, as I like to say a lot on the show. So in 2005, the Smileagain Foundation was set up. So tell me more about what was going on in your mind at that time, what was happening that led you to consider setting up this organization.
Okay, thank you so much for inviting me in your show. And it's a pleasure to see your beautiful face, because you know that I've been in the beauty business for the last 40 years. Yes. Well, anything more, I can do it at Depilex, okay? So don't worry. In 2005, actually, the idea of helping burnt victims and especially acid burnt victims was conceptualized in 2003.
All right.
When in my salon a girl walked in and she said that she wanted me to look beautiful because I could do better makeup for her. And of course there's nothing which could be done by makeup to make her look beautiful. So that was the day in my life, I would say an evening in my life which totally turned my life upside down, and I started to work for women who've been subjected to such heinous crime. And I say that acid crimes or kerosene burning is actually the worst form of domestic violence. Now, that doesn't mean that every other woman in Pakistan is being burnt by acid or kerosene oil, but even if it is one woman, it should not be happening.
Quite
so right. That particular day, this girl, when she walked into my office, she wanted me to help her. It's when it was then that I realized that Allah has been kind to all of us. He has given us so much that we don't even deserve it. And unfortunately, we don't say thank you, Allah Mia, all the time that we receive all his bounties and blessings.
Right.
So when I went back home, I actually did cry and said, thank you so much, Allah Ta'ala, for giving me so much.
No, absolutely. I think that is an extremely, relevant and important place to begin with. And as they say, charity begins at home. And for me, it feels that, to me, means that it begins from the heart. And I think that's where this sort of really genuine impulse comes forward. But Dr. Bajwa, you are a burn specialist and you have done amazing things with burn victims. And, I've seen photographs and it's astounding, really. I don't want to show you guys them, but I have a strong stomach and I have morbid curiosity. Yeah. But there are different kinds of burn. And like Masarrat mentioned with Smileagain, the foundation, which you work very closely with as well, they deal primarily with acid and kerosene burns.
True.
So acid burning comes under chemical burns.
Very right.
And then kerosene is another category of burns, because there are different kinds of burns, aren't there?
Actually, the acid burn, we call it a chemical burn because it's not only acid.
Yes.
There are certain other chemicals like bleach, like alkalis, they also burn. And sometimes they are more dangerous and more drastic as compared to the acid burns.
Really?
Acid actually, it's a chemical which once spilled on anything, it leads to necrosis or denaturation of the proteins.
Right.
And
it's corrosive. It eats away at whatever it
eats
touches.
away. It's basically destroying the proteins, penetrating into the tissues, destroying the tissue planes, and ultimately leading to a lot of bigger wound and scarring and shriveling of the areas. And sometimes even loss of the organs. If you have heard about the spillage on the face may lead to loss of the eyes. And it leads to a lot of deformity and denaturation, and ultimately the patient is the sufferer. Acids, they are basically penetrating on the partial superficial layers, and the alkalis, they are even deeping, and they are moving to the deeper portions of the tissues as well, and they don't stop because they keep on doing that.
Oh gosh, so alkalis keep tunneling through whatever
they are tunneling through. So these chemicals, they are a lot more destructive. On the other hand, the kerosene is, it's not the kerosene which is destroying the tissue, it's the fire process.
Oh, right.
It's basically if we have a spillage of kerosene on our clothes or even on our skin, it doesn't harm that much.
Right.
It may not be even harming so much, but if it catches fire, of course, the fire which destroys.
Oh, okay.
So we put that category under the flame burn, and the acids and alkalis and bleach, they are under the chemical burns.
Oh, wow. What are these alkalis? Because, when one thinks of acid, one is always thinking of like battery fluid or kitchen cleaner, or, things you use to pour down toilets.
True.
But what are alkalis?
Actually, have you heard of bleach?
Yes.
Bleach is one of the chemical. It's not acid.
Oh.
It's basically an alkali. So it's basically like a category as the acid is, the alkali is another category.
So they're all corrosive.
They are corrosives, no doubt they are corrosives, and they're destroying the human skin and human body, and sometimes even destroying the underlying structures, muscles, nerves, even the bones.
Even the bones?
Even the bones, yeah.
Good God.
It is.
And I think that's the kind of damage, like you said, when proteins are denatured, that's irreversible damage.
It is irreversible.
Because it's like, if we were to compare it to, for example, frying an egg. So when you cook an egg,
very true,
the protein becomes hard.
They are clumped up, they are hard. Body proteins, they're performing their particular functions.
Yeah.
Like if we talk of the skin, it is a protective function on the outer covering of the body. Once it's destroyed, the covering is open. It's an open source for the bacteria and other organisms to penetrate into the body. And furthermore, it is the underlying structures when they are destroyed. Suppose if the muscle is destroyed, muscle, they cause movement. So there is no more movement. If the nerves, they're destroyed, there are no more sensations. If the blood vessel, they're destroyed, there's no more flow to the blood, to this area. And ultimately, the blood flow, if it is hampered, the organ is lost.
And that does sort of lead us back to what Masarrat said about how she feels like, as far as violence goes, this is probably one of the worst kinds, because like you said, it's not just the skin. It's muscles,
not just the skin.
It's bones,
it's not
it's
just
organs.
The skin. Yes.
So it's incredibly vicious.
In chemical burns, it's not just only the destruction. It causes a lot of pain, and it's a lot of, post-burn deformities. And they are more common as compared to it. The healing of the burn is more prolonged as compared to the ordinary flame burns.
I will cycle back to that because, I don't want to give everything away. So, Masarrat, tell me more. So, then in 2005, the foundation was set up, and I was looking at the website, for example, and I found that a lot of success stories were from women from Punjab. So basically Lahore, Islamabad and Karachi. So do you get most of the women who come to the foundation, are they from these big cities?
No. They're not from the big cities.
Okay.
Big cities have the best institutes and the facilities. Most of our cases are from south of Punjab.
Okay.
And then from interior Sindh, and then from KPK, and then from Balochistan. But then in Karachi and Lahore and bigger cities also, incidents do occur and happen.
Yes.
So, but mostly so from south of Punjab.
Right.
So, and that, just to, take back on what Dr. Bajwa was just, explaining, that, the failures of organs or the contractures which come after a little while, because it is a procedure, a treatment which takes years and years for somebody to actually look better. They can never be the same person.
No.
So it's a disability. It is, not just the disability, but physical and mental trauma both comes with it,
Yes.
which I'm sure Dr. Afzal, agrees also. So when a person is being thrown acid upon or being burned by fire by throwing kerosene oil, or maybe, accidental cases like gas leak and all.
Huh.
So, the whole family suffers, not just one individual. And then, the process of healing the wounds physically and process of mentally, psychological and psychiatric treatments, and then, actually explaining everything and giving counseling to the family is also very important. So
Absolutely.
it's not just the physical deformity or disability or disfigurement, it is so much more to it.
Quite right.
So
and
much more.
From what I understand, Smileagain does provide these services as well. So it's not just medical support, but there's counseling available for survivors as well. And also, of course, there's there's vocational training, and there are job opportunities that the foundation helps with.
So our mission is not just giving them free medical help and support, but after a certain number of surgeries, when the limbs are moving, the organs are actually maybe in a better position. Like for instance, the neck and chin have been contractured, and if that contracture has been removed and they can move their neck, or eye, maybe one of the eye has been destroyed, but the other eye still has, a little light left in it, or so we start the vocational training, and that training is obviously according to their acumen. Like,
Yes.
Not all the victims are educated. In fact, very few victims are educated. So we have to think of a training, a program for them, which makes them empowered, which makes them confident, which makes them to earn.
We're going to take a very quick break here and come back to this very, very important conversation. Stay with us. Hi, welcome back to the coffee table. We're talking about acid burns with Masarrat Misbah from the Smileagain Foundation and Dr. Afzal Bajwa, who is a burn specialist. Dr. Bajwa, when somebody is presents or it's brought to you and is suffering from these kind of, acid burns. I'm just going to say acid as a lump, sort of catch-all phrase.
Very right.
What is So I think this is a two-pronged question. What are the most common areas that are affected by this particular kind of attack, A? And B, what is the sort of immediate steps that one takes to stop the damage from continuing?
It's basically, once the chemical or acid, which we talk of particular, because the most common incident they are with the acids, and you very rightly said that we should be, making it clear that it's acid burns most of the times. So once the acid is spilled on the body and thrown on somebody, most of the time the areas affected, they are exposed parts.
Right.
Face, hands.
And if you sort of do this to protect yourself,
yes. And, particularly only the face is the part which is deliberately victimized.
Yes,
and the
because that's like the maximum psychological trauma.
That is, exactly. Because if somebody is throwing it with, of course, it's due to some enmity, and very rarely it's some, you can call it accidental, but it's, victimization most of the times, and it's thrown on the face. So most of the time, face and neck and the lateral parts like ears, they are involved. And the hands are the second most important part, they are involved by the acid burns.
Right.
And once they are spilled, actually, the person is in a chaos.
Yes.
It doesn't know what has happened.
Because most of the time the attack is planned and it's obviously a surprise.
Of course, it's planned on the attacker's side, the person who is coming, and it's a surprise on the victim side.
Yes.
And once it's done, and many a times when we take history of the patient, he has or she has never seen the person who has thrown it.
Good
because
Lord.
they in a glimpse, they come up, throw and run away.
Oh, so
And once it is thrown on any area of the body, the second part of your question is very even more important, because once it says done is done, what we can do is basically we have to proceed further and we have to move further. It should be washed off as immediately as possible.
With water?
Any water which is available in the vicinity. It should be, normal tap water. It's usually available around. Ideally, it must be a clean water of the drip. But if it's not available, no problem. Just plenty of water taken from the tap water. It's the normal room temperature, not cold water from, the ice or all that. It's the normal room temperature water. Take it from, and
anywhere,
put
the bathroom or...
Yeah, that is. So put a plenty on it.
All right.
Keep on washing, keep on washing. There is no limit for keep on washing.
Okay.
Till, you reach to the emergency of the hospital where, the first aid be given to the patient. So it should be given in. And, many times patient, they got spilt inside the eyes and immediately it starts working. Of course, it started burning process. It's very painful. Patient squeezes the eyes and once the acid is spilled inside the eyes, it keeps on destroying. Better try to open it and, wash it with plenty of water. It's the only thing which is available is basically water, which can alleviate and which can decrease the damage by the chemical. It's an acid. Some people, they consider that putting milk over it, it neutralizes the acid. It should never been done. It should be condemned. And I think I should be talking to my viewers and I should let them know that they should never put milk or these things on the face or any part which has been burnt with the acid. Just a lot of water, repeatedly keep on washing until immediately reach to any immediately available emergency where the doctor can take care of you and he can start the initial management of the burns.
So, Masarrat, what is the general kind of, let's say, background or situation of women that come to the foundation?
Okay, so basically, most of the victims are from very humble background. I'm saying most of them, but there are victims who have been subjected to this crime in larger cities also.
Yes.
So one would probably think that the reasons for acid throwing or women being burned, it's a gender-based violence mostly. 99% of the time it is a gender-based violence, but the reasons are unfortunately, and it has been prevalent in our country for as long as I know. So one has to, really take serious efforts and laws to stop it. But if the dowry is not enough, if a woman refuses a boy or a man for marriage, or if a child is being born, or it's heritage, or maybe enmity, as Dr. Bajwa just said. So these are the things which could be very easily solved also, because it says in Quran, in our religion also, that a woman can marry whoever she wants to.
Quite right.
When it comes to heritage in the Surah Nisa and in Quran, it just explains everything. And if a man wants to divorce a woman can take a hula also. So it's basically
and there's legal recourse and there are legal solutions to all of these things.
Of course, all these things. When you look at it, Pakistan has got, mashallah, amazing laws for everything. We've got laws for plants, we've got laws for animals, so we've got laws for women also now.
Quite right.
And there have been some amendments also made. It's only that the awareness about these laws, especially where it comes to women issues, women should be aware of it. And how do they get aware about it? Because maybe they're not educated, maybe they live in far-flung areas where they've never even seen, school, or have never been to any institution. So this is actually the job of our state, the job of the civil society also, in a little way, to make people aware of it, and awareness and advocacy will actually help laws
Absolutely.
don't lessen the crimes. The crimes can only be if it is certain, number one, which means that the implementation has to be certain. That will make a crime, it will curb the crime.
Quite
so
right.
Hopefully,
because because we have laws. If I remember correctly, in 2011, the Acid Control and Acid Crime Prevention Bill was passed, and I think there's been further sort of legislation over the years done to it. And technically, by law, you can be jailed for 14 years to life if you throw acid on somebody, and you can be fined up to ₹1 million as well. So these are things that I feel like it's important to be general knowledge as well as a deterrent as well, that there is some kind of framework of punishment for committing these crimes. And I did read somewhere statistics that, and I think that these are 2014 statistics, so they're still 6 years old, that the rate of attack has sort of decreased by about 50%. But Masarrat, do you think that from the sort of influx of women that you get at the foundation and people that you see, do you think that that's because it's genuinely decreased, or do you think that it's not being reported as much?
I personally think that because of the awareness about the law and because our media, our electronic media is playing a very, very important tool to curb this crime. And any such incident becomes a breaking news. So when it comes on the media, automatically, the legal departments, the political leaders and all, they all become very active to make sure that the woman gets the justice. So the more cases which are being reported makes one think that maybe there are more incidents taking place. It's only, I think, because it's being reported, that's why the number has, one would say increase. But because of the law, and if the punishment is certain, the number of cases will definitely go down.
Yes.
In the amendments in the law that you mentioned in 2011, the punishment and the compensation is also there, but we are working on the ban of sale of acid and making it, categorizing it into commercial and home uses. So commercial is, it is used commercially in textile industries
and
the
farming
cars, and all those. But the ones which are being sold openly are the ones which are normally people go there and ask, "Ji, drain, we want it for opening the drain and all," and they get the alkalines or maybe the most strongest neat acids also. So there has to be a regulatory authority. There has to be a law which makes it difficult for the person to buy it.
Absolutely. Some kind of maybe registry, where I'm sure that would be helpful. And even if, Dr. Saab, you get patients who have been attacked, and as doctors and medical professionals, if there was this kind of maybe offenders registry or some kind of record, you could report it.
Yeah, it's not that thing you are just introducing it. It has already been in place, and there is a World Burn Registry. We are taking care of that. We are entering our cases on the World Registry as well.
Okay.
So the record is being maintained these days, and even it has been even not on the softwares, but on the hard copies and the registers, the data has been being collected, and it's in place. The burn, actually, taking care of the burn is a comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
It's just not taking care of the wounds, as Masarrat Misbah was talking about. And she was perfectly and particularly right about. The thing is, the person who has got the injury is not just taking care of the wound and healing the wound and he's going back and just switch on the story again. It's actually not. There are certain things which are basically coming to play a role as a team.
Right.
Like, one is taking care of the wounds.
Yes.
Other one is taking care of the psychological aspects to get a rehabilitation, as Aram was taking care of about these burns. And the third one is basically the nutritional supports to these patients. and getting them back to the normal life. And once they are back to the normal life, which we call it normal, but it's actually not that normal.
No, theirs is forever also.
Yeah, they are affected parts of the society.
Absolutely.
And if somebody has something spilled on the face and the face is not that looking normal, even, they get very hard and feel it very difficult to get employments and work in their working places. So what actually...
that's very important.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a very crucial aspect of this sort of physical disfigurement.
Very true.
Is that it is genuinely difficult to get a job, and especially I think a lot of female-oriented work environments, a lot of them work in the service industry. And, you can't... I'm sure you can't get a lot of jobs if you don't...
That's right. And that's basically the thing which I liked about the Depilex Smileagain Foundation. It was lovely thing that, the person is not being treated only. She's not been just supported about the treatment. It is being, rehabilitated and been putting back to the society with some, something some skill in her hands, so that she can earn her living and she can go back to the society with her head high.
Absolutely. I think that dignity is the huge...
That is the most important thing.
Contribution.
So healing of the wounds is just one aspect. So it's basically, and this is not just enough even. On the other side, there must be some legislation and there must be some, of course, the government is working on that side as well. And government is, providing some laws and, all these things, they are being sorted out. So that these people who are doing these side of cruel crimes, they must be giving adequate punishments.
Absolutely.
And so that the crime must go to the ground level. That must be decreased.
Yes, absolutely. And it's a very complex, social issue as well. And we're going to take a very quick break here and come back to this wonderful conversation. Stay with us. Hi, welcome back to this wonderful conversation that we're having on the coffee table right now. We're talking to Dr. Afzal Bajwa, who's a burn specialist, and Masarrat Misbah from Depilex's Smileagain Foundation about the different ramifications of acid burning and how victims are being helped by all these wonderful efforts. So before the break, Masarrat, we were talking about how it's very difficult for disfigured women to be gainfully employed, and how a lot of times not being economically independent only then adds and aggravates an already terrible situation. And I know that the Smileagain Foundation does help women find jobs, and in your salons as well.
So what I've noticed is that with these burnt victims, they have restrictions, not just from their disfigurement, but from their families also. Because they still think that if they become empowered or if they start earning, the perpetrator would come back again and maybe throw acid on them again.
Oh my God. So there's a fear of further retribution.
Gee.
Okay.
Which is, for instance, on bail or is not behind bars. So it is difficult. But then there are so many vocational trainings which these women can actually work from home. For instance, stitching, embroidery. For instance, I know that they are being employed at Depilex branches all over Pakistan.
Yes.
But if they're living in smaller towns and villages, we actually help them in setting up their own small salons in their houses so that they can earn their living. And then women who've been maybe burnt many years back and they're old and they're not educated, we help them in opening up small shops, in their own houses, like a tuck shop.
Yes.
They earn. And like I said, that embroidery and stitching is something which comes naturally to women who are in smaller towns and villages. And sometimes if the women have lost both the eyes, then what do we do?
Yes.
So, so what we have done is very successfully, apart from giving them a tuck shop and somebody from their family helps them in selling and buying, cows or goats, they milk them and they sell it. So automatically they become earning member. It is very important for them to earn because then their families, it's not that they don't love them and they don't care, but they don't have the means to love them and the means to care for them. So once they start paying them a certain amount, they become the contributive members in their household also.
Absolutely.
So from
and you take on a position, and you become a dignified, contributing member of your family, and not just a victim to whom this terrible thing happened.
Exactly. I mean, they are learning baking and cold, like making sandwiches and salads for different clients, working from bakeries also. And there are girls, young women, young girls, young children actually, whom we give scholarships so that they can continue with their studies. Now they can study online. They are girls who work in banks, got their own businesses.
That's
so there are many things, that they've been doing.
Dr. Bajwa, I did read also that 1/3 of burn victims are children. And that often happens because they happen to be in the vicinity when, a woman around them, it might be their mother or their sister or their mom or something. They say mom twice, forgive me. They get splashed, and it's sort of like an accidental ancillary damage done. That's horrible. That's doubly horrible. This innocent little child.
That's really very painful. Really very horrible to even think about it. But actually, more children, they are burned, and if I add it, they are having accidental burns.
Okay.
Why accidental? We have sometimes acid lying in our washrooms for cleaning purposes. And
so those are the genuine accidents.
They are basically genuine accidents. And, it was basically one of the campaigns which I started with, and I advocated it and different, at levels to make an awareness for the people that don't put these chemicals inside bottles, and particularly in those bottles which are mimicking your beverage bottles. And the children, like in Pepsi bottle or any other
That's true,
bottle,
in a sort of plastic
they
bottle.
just put in it, and the children, they think it to be a
drink,
and they start. And many times they come up with the acid burns inside the mouth and
down
the
these
food pipes.
offices.
And they are much more common as compared to. And
now, I just want to sort of interrupt here, but from the angle of your expertise as a cosmetic surgeon, how much can one do for somebody? For example, if somebody has come to Smileagain and is wanting to improve the way they look, and of course that is such a multi-layered thing,
True.
Trying to kind of rebuild your life. So what kind of procedures are available for women, at least in Pakistan, for example? Because I know that the foundation did at some point work with Italian doctors as well. So sort of, what have we got here that
in Pakistan, we have got trained and we have expertise about everything.
Excellent.
Like we are dealing with the burns for last many years.
Right.
And these patients, they come up with not only for deformity, first for the wounds, of course.
Yes.
And they take little more heed, little more attention as compared to the ordinary flame burns. Because many times we have to go to debride these and clean these wounds, special antibiotics, dressings, and the ultimately surgical procedure to heal these wounds.
Right.
We take skin grafts from different parts of the body, play over it, and ultimately the wounds get healed.
Right. So it's a very complex process.
It is really complex process. And it's a bit longer process as compared to the other ordinary burns, as compared to the flame burns, like water burns.
So it takes longer to heal.
It's longer to heal off because they are pretty sure that they are deeper wounds and they have certain specified, the tissues which are necrosed over it. And we have to debride them off for repeated times and wash them off from the body. And ultimately, once they are off, then we think about the reconstruction.
No, but it's heartening to know that there are these kind of current and up-to-date techniques available for survivors.
Yeah.
In Pakistan.
So once they are healed, as a plastic surgeon and as a cosmetic surgeon, once we plan about the reconstructive processes, we do keep in mind, like suppose if it's a face and neck, and hands, they are basically having certain, of course, aesthetic values as well. They're not just like hand is not just an organ of function, it's also organ of cosmesis and appearance. The same is with the face. So they are, number one, done on emergent and earlier spaces. Like suppose if somebody has acid burn on the face and the eyelids, they are gone, like pulled up, and they are unable to close the eyes, we prioritize them. These things, they are called ectropion. And if you know, it's very hard to, if you keep on your eyes open for a couple of minutes and they become red, they become watery, and it's basically very painful situation. And even ultimately,
or if you can't sort of close your mouth.
Even ultimately one can lose the eye. So we prioritize them in their treatment. It's not just cosmesis, it's the salvage and savage of an organ. So we ultimately prioritize them, and on earlier basis, we reconstruct their eyelids. And if sometimes people, they have a smaller opening of the mouth, it's shriveled, it's contracted, and they're unable to eat. We open their mouth, we reconstruct it so that they can eat normally. And many times the lips, they are everted, they're pulled down, and ultimately they are not even swallowing the saliva. And saliva is dribbling down, it's another problem. So we reconstruct their oral cavities. The goal is to take them back to the normal life. Right?
As much as possible.
And as aesthetic as possible. And in this, for this goal, we achieve it in many ways. Like we go with surgery, we go with camouflage. Like suppose if a girl is having some burn on the face, we advise them to take a hairstyle in that way that can cover it. And sometimes if the eyebrow or if some parts they're lost, we can just tattoo them. It's not always going with the bigger reconstruction that we have good
And it's
result.
important, I think, at this juncture to sort of remember that this is not just about looking nice. This is about trying to feel like yourself again. In the wake of a huge tragedy and something that was sort of completely beyond your control also. And I think that is something very beautiful in a beauty institute trying to help other women feel better about themselves. And Masarrat, I know that the foundation also has a legal representation cell, which I'm also quite interested in. If you could tell me a little bit about that.
I just would like to add to what Dr. Bajwa has just mentioned about, like about tattooing or maybe. So we do teach these girls once they've gone. I'm really grateful to, he's been with us, with our organization for a very long time. And the foreign doctors who come to us and visit us, they still come from Italy. They still come from Italy and they still come from other parts of the world. They actually come to do surgeries. So the worst part of the operation has already been taken care by Afzal and other eminent and very, very talented doctors. So it is very important. Clap again.
I'm clapping.
I'm very thankful for your high words, and I'm really thankful and that you rely on me. You, these patients, they are, you send them to me. And of course, I try from the level of my heart to get them back to their normal life. And I'm really thankful for your nice words and, of course, your reliability on me.
Teamwork.
Thank you. But this is so important, for like Dr. Bajwa said, that to make them look and feel good. So, of course, the reconstructive surgery plays a very, very important part from bringing them back to their normal selves, and then of course the makeup, which helps by tattooing their eyebrows or maybe helping them in applying the foundation and all, so that they feel good, they feel
confident
they look
and
nice,
more and sort of a way to kind of deal with that trauma also. Absolutely.
And then, like you said about the legal cell, we liaison with other NGOs also, so that if they need legal help and support, we call them up and tell them that this is the story, and if they like.
I love that. I love that the foundation has brought together so many people. And that everybody is kind of pulling together.
Yes,
Yes.
and this is amazing that Dastaki Foundation or Zia Van's Foundation or Gul Hassan as an individual and his
Thank you so much, Masarrat and Dr. Bajwa, for being on the show with me today. I think that it was a really kind of intense conversation, but I'm so happy to end feeling at least personally hopeful that there are so many talented doctors here, there's so many talented people
Mina,
here, and that everybody is kind of, pulling together. And yes, bad things happen, but as long as we can kind of stick together and help in our own ways.
That's very right.
There's always hope.
It's very right. It's a teamwork.
Yes.
And as we were talking about the facilities here in Pakistan, we have all the facilities. Like if I compare to, I worked in America, I worked in, England. When I compare to these areas, even I worked in Canada. And we are doing the most modern things. We are doing, lasers for these burns. We are doing stem cells. We are doing PRPs. And we are doing many things for the healing of these burns, and we are getting these patients back to their normal life.
Excellent.
It's basically...
There's a lot of hope for us.
It's a lot of hope for the patients, and it's a lot of our love and care for them as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your hard work for all of us. Thank you guys for watching. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe and share this show, because as Masarrat said, advocacy and awareness is key to tackling this very complex social problem. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time on the coffee table. Bye now.